everyone. We're going to use the chi-square test to determine if a pair of variables are related in a significant way or not, given our data. And this is example 2. So we're dealing with high blood pressure, normal blood pressure, and low blood pressure. And we're talking about fat and thin individuals. So we're going to first add all this up and get our totals. So when you add up, and first notice we have 3 columns, column 1, column 2, column 3, and we have 2 rows, row 1 and row 2. We don't count the totals as rows and columns. So let's add our totals. If you go vertical, column 1, the total's 85, column 2 is 134, then 69, and then if you go across, that would be 288. And now let's add our rows. That's 131 and 157. And when you add vertically and horizontally, you should get 288 if you did it right. Now we're going to do the expected values. The expected values is when you take, for example, for high blood pressure, you're going to take your 85, divide it by your total, which is 288, times your 131, your total here. So a lot of totals. So this is going to be times 131 for your row. And that's going to give you approximately 38.7. All right. Now let's go across. Or let's just keep going down. So then to do the thin, you write the same thing, but instead of 131, for thin, you're going to multiply by 157. So it's 85 divided by 288 times 157. And that's going to be approximately 46.3. Now for normal, we're going to use 134. So for normal, our total is 134. So we still have our 288 for total, but here we're changing these to 134. And so for your fat, you're multiplying it by 131. When you multiply this, you're going to get approximately 61.0. And then when you do the thin, that's going to be approximately 73.0. Now for the low blood pressure, we're taking our total of 69. So you erase these and write 69. And then use your calculator and get your approximate value of 31.4 and 37 for this one, 37.6. Now your totals here stay the same. So you just write your 85, 134, 169. Oh, no, it's just 69. Sorry about that. 69. And then copy down these. So that's 131, 157, and 288. So that's filling out the table. Now let's fill out some information. The tables are called contingency tables. Also, we want to do the number of degrees of freedom. And that has to do with your rows and columns. So So we're going to do that, kind of cursive V. It's new. It's called new. All right, and that's your rows minus 1 times your columns minus 1. Remember, we had 2 rows and we had 3 columns. So in this case, we have our new, I can't make it very well, equals 2 minus 1 times 3 minus 1 equals 2. And we're going to look at that when we look at our critical values. The null hypothesis is going to be weight and blood pressure are independent, and the alternative would be the same thing, but you write weight and blood pressure are dependent. They depend on one another. All right. Now we're going to calculate the chi-squared with this from our IB information booklet. Also note that this also can be written as the expected value minus the observed value squared divided by the observed value. It makes it easier to use for the calculator. So what we want to do is calculate that. So here's our information. I'm going to go ahead and use this formula because it's easier. So the way you do that, you're just going to take your numbers. I'm going to do my expected value minus my observed value, which is 50, squared divided by 50, plus, now let's take 61 minus 56 squared divided by 56, plus, now we're going to do this one, 31.4 minus 25 squared divided by 25. If you can see why I'd like to do this is because we don't have these decimals in the denominator. Okay, so there's that one. Now let's do the second row. Let's use this color. So that one's going to be these two. So that's going to be 46.3 minus 35 squared divided by 35 plus, they do these two, 73 minus 78 squared divided by 78 plus finally your last one is going to be 37.6 minus 44 squared divided by 44. And once you finish all that, you get approximately 8.53. So that's going to be your calculated value. Now, what we want to do is find the critical value. So let's do that. Our critical value is we have to use our degrees of freedom. So our degree of freedom was 2, and we want the 95% level of certainty. So you go to this number, and that is 5.991. So our chi-squared critical equals 5.991, and that is less than, so our critical is less than our calculated, because 5.991 is less than 8.53. Since it's not greater than, we have to accept the alternative hypothesis. So we're going to say that we're going to reject our null hypothesis. So that means weight and blood pressure are dependent. So I'll write that out. Weight and blood pressure are dependent, and that's assuming a 95% level of certainty. Based on our 5% significance level. And that's it. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.